China's debt crisis. Why you should be worried. Many fortunes and reputations have been lost over the years predicting problems for China. But this time could be different. The tremors rumbling through the country's bonds markets threaten escalating to a shockwave of defaults, potentially de-establishing the economy. Look no further than the government's own actions for proof that Beijing recognizes it is drowning in debt and needs a lifebuoy. It is finally bringing some pricing discipline to the corporate bond market, and it's aggressively using foreign investors to contribute to the reduction of a massive pile of bad debt. Stay with us until the end of the video to learn why this is a matter of concern. Since the global financial crisis, China's debt has grown at a rate of around 20% per year, dwarfing nominal GDP growth. As a result, according to the Bank of International Settlements data, the country's debt-to-GDP ratio increased from 178% in the first quarter of 2010 to nearly 275% in the first quarter of 2020. The coronavirus pandemic's emergency spending has merely increased the country's spiraling debt. The current trajectory is unsustainable. China's debt ratio will soon surpass that of Japan during the height of its crisis, and we've all seen what excessive debt can do to a country. The defaults of a three state-owned firm, minor Yongqin Coal and Electricity Holding Group, Huchin Automotive Group Holdings, and a chipmaker supported by the Tsinghua University have all gotten a lot of attention. Local government finance vehicles, on the other hand, are the debtors to keep an eye on. City and provincial governments created LGFVs to get around Beijing's ban on the borrowing directly from banks. After the bulk of the LGFV borrowings were swapped into municipal bonds, their total debt now stands at around 10% of the GDP, with nearly a quarter of that, nearly 2.5 trillion yuan, due in 2021. There's yet to be a default on a bond issued with the LGFV. However, as investors increasingly question the value of implicit local government guarantees, new issuance is declining and coupon rates are rising. For the entrance of financial and social stability, the Communist Party would have sought means to protect Yongqin's investors as well as its tens of thousands of employees in the past. It can't, however, afford to write blank checks any longer. China was able to rely on a robust growth to keep the debt at a percentage of GDP low until the global financial crisis. However, rising laborers' costs have damaged China's competitiveness, making it more difficult for the country to expand its share of global commerce. The country's debt-to-GDP ratio has been rising as exports' percentage of the GDP has fallen since Beijing's increased investment to boost growth after the global financial crisis. However, buoyant exports have aided China's quick recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, but this is only a brief respite of the increasingly unfriendly and repressive international climate. Joe Biden, the incoming US president, has made it clear that he'll retain a firm stance towards China. President Xi Jinping wants China to become more self-sufficient, recognizing the worsening global climate. However, his actions endanger the very source of growth he seeks to exploit. Consumers have been deterred by Xi's emphasis on frugality, his railing against high property prices, and Beijing's continued suppression of bank deposit rates. Xi has demanded the private sector companies do the Communist Party's bidding and has cracked down on financial technology companies like Ant Group. To ensure long-term growth, China must increase productivity. This will necessitate, among other things, smarter capital allocation. To that end, allowing more defaults to spur advances in credit risk assessment is a positive step. However, the leadership recognizes that rising bad debts could spill over into the banking sector, making consolidation even more urgent, and that financial turmoil will stifle growth. Although we believe a debt crisis is on the way, we do not believe China will see a classic financial catastrophe. Internally, the company owns the majority of its debt. To smooth out any market turbulence, the central bank might inject liquidity into the system, and the federal government's balance sheet has plenty of room. We estimate that China's overall public debt would reach 90% to 110% of GDP if it assumed explicit responsibility for all bad debts, a significant burden but one that Beijing could bear if its financial markets were transformed to properly access credit risk and begin to allocate resources more efficiently. However, this is a big if because it would mean that the Communist Party relinquishing control of the banking system. This is exceedingly unlikely, given that the party's moves under Xi have been fully in the opposite direction. Xi does not want the Communist Party 100th anniversary festivities to July to be marred by the nasty debt reckoning, but after that, everything is up in the air. The need to diverge is expected to affect China's GDP and employment to the coming year and beyond. What about the debt owed to China by the rest of the world? Almost all of this business comes from the official sources, such as the government and state-owned business. China has been financing to rising economies, such as those in Africa, for many years. China is also a big holder of the US Treasury bonds, effectively financing the US government budget deficits. However, many of the loans in developing nations are between governments, and China frequently withholds information about the loan specifics and terms. China's Belt and Road Initiative, an ambitious infrastructure investment plan to create rail, road, marine, and other networks creating from China to Asia, Africa, and Europe, have also been increasing its foreign projects financed by state-backed loans. China's outstanding debt claims on the rest of the world increased from around 1.6 trillion in 2006 to more than 5.6 trillion as of mid of 2020, according to a report published by the Institute of International Finance in January of 2021, making China one of the largest creditors to low-income countries. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.